What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Alternative Factory. We recommend old stuff because we don't want to reward studios by giving them our money for this new woke trash that they put out. This week, I'm going to go ahead and dial it back, about 50 years at this point, almost 60 years. And movie-wise, I'm going to recommend The Man with No Name trilogy, which consists of A Fistful of Dollars for a Few Dollars More and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, starring, of course, Clint Eastwood. Legend. I think he's like 91 years old now, and he's still active. Like, if it were me, I'm Gene Hackman, and I'm quitting like when I'm 75 or something like that, and enjoying the money that I've made and the life that I've built for myself. But hey, if that's what he enjoys doing, then more power to him. So this film series, I used to see it on TV, maybe like on TBS, the Superstation back in the day. And then eventually we got the VHS tapes, and I would watch those over and over again. And then I got these DVDs probably like in 2000 or so, and I've kept them ever since. But this movie trilogy started out when Eastwood, I believe he was still on Rawhide as one of the main characters on that, and he was very much like a white hat, baby face character, a hero and stuff like that. He would kiss the ladies and, pet the dog and feed his horse and ride off. Well, he wanted to do something a little bit more complex. So Sergio Leone, famous Italian director, was wanting to do these spaghetti westerns, which doesn't mean that they were filmed in Italy. They were actually filmed in Spain, outside Madrid, and then in southern Spain, which resembles the Southwest United States in many ways. So he reached out to Eastwood, and they had some meetings, and he decided to do it. And I believe his salary for the first movie was only like $15,000 plus like a car. They gave him like a Mercedes or something like that upon completion of the film. So they filmed it, and it had an Italian release, didn't come out in the United States. So they did the second movie, and that was another success. So they finally did a third. And then in the United States in 1967, they released all of them that year, spaced out by about 5 or 6 months. I think it was January, May, and then December. Huge hits, and it definitely propelled his career to the next level, because then he's in Dirty Harry and he's starting to direct. And by the 80s, he was just a mega star in Hollywood. Great movies. I guess a lot of people would say it's kind of a cliche recommendation. Some people don't like the movies because they think they're a little cheesy. They think that they're a little bit too avant-garde, but I think they're amazing. They definitely portray him as the anti-hero. He has a little bit of gray to him, a little bit of gray area. He's not a black and white hero versus villain, but he always does the right thing. The first movie, Kurosawa, that also made The Hidden Fortress that George Lucas borrowed from. Well, Yojimbo was a movie that basically is the plot of the first movie here. And Kurosawa and whatever studio made Yojimbo successfully sued the production company on A Fistful of Dollars because it's essentially the same plot. But great movie trilogy. It's got Lee Van Cleef in the second and third movies. And then it's got, of course, the legendary award-winning Eli Wallach, who died not too long ago, maybe sometime in the past decade, at I think almost 100 years old. Legendary performers as well as Eastwood, and just so interesting to watch. I love these movies. Used to watch them with my father. At one point, I would watch them maybe once every 2 years, but it just kind of fell out of rotation, and I haven't seen them in quite a while. So for me, it's probably time to go ahead and throw them in the old DVD player and watch them, or else find them on streaming somewhere. So if I do find them on streaming, I will put the links in the description of the video. So definitely check out the Man with No Name trilogy. And then television-wise, what I've got here is The Shield. So FX is a network from Fox that wanted to go a little bit more on the racy side. It had been around for a couple of years and stuff like that, but this is their first drama. So they wanted to kind of be like HBO, but they were still ad sponsored. So even though in the United States they're not censored because it's not over the air, you still have your advertisers that you have to worry about. So they really pushed the envelope on this show. Nudity, partial nudity. They dropped a couple of F-bombs, violence, all that stuff. It really pushes the envelope. It is like watching an R-rated movie for sure. So the show is based on the real-life Rampart Division in LAPD. Read up on that sometime if you can find a documentary too. Very interesting story where this division of LAPD, there was like this anti-gang unit, stuff like that. They just started committing crimes themselves and robbing banks and getting people that were inside of banks to work with them, lying on the stand when they were called as like expert witnesses and eyewitnesses and stuff. It was all like very much this brotherhood of, 70 to 100 people. Well, in the show, it's only like a small strike team that's in on it, and they do their jobs as police officers. They're undercover detectives, but they raid and do all that stuff. So they're in on this, and something happens in the very first episode. I remember watching it saying, yeah, it's a pretty good cop show. And then something happens in the last 5 minutes of the very first episode while Kid Rock's Ba Witta Ba is playing, that song from back in the day. And I'm like, whoa, that changes everything. And what happened in that last 5 minutes of that first episode of the first season goes all the way through all 7 seasons. But along with that, every season kind of has its own story, right? They do something in the second season they have to deal with, and the third and the fourth. But that one thing that happens in that first episode, it just follows them all throughout the series, and it's amazing. You have like character moments and certain characters in the show, you're like, oh, it's a minor character, who cares? No, they have great stuff going on with their character, and everyone has a different dynamic. So aside from the strike team, you have got CCH Pounder, and I'm trying to think of the guy's name. Jay Carnes, he plays Dutch. They're like a real detective team, and they have an interesting dynamic, like a dorky white guy and a really tough black lady. Really interesting dynamic as partners. You've got the black and white cops, the drivers, that are out in the squad cars. They have their own little story going on. Glenn Close came into the 4th season. You've got Forrest Whitaker. I think he came in on the 5th and the early part of the 6th season. Speaking of which, I will say that I felt like the 6th season was just there. They very much could have condensed all of that into just a few episodes and only had like 6 seasons, because it really started dragging on in the 6th until they really started to wrap stuff up in the 7th. But 1, 2, 3, and 4, excellent stuff. Glenn Close was amazing. I believe Michael Chiklis won a Primetime Emmy for the first season. He was nominated several other times. And then you've got Walton Goggins. In the past probably 5 years, he's become a pretty big thing. He's in a lot of different shows. He was in Justified, and he's in some comedies. He was on Sons of Anarchy, which arguably is part of the Ryanverse. Sean Ryan is the creator of this show, and a lot of the actors and a lot of the fictional stuff that happens in The Shield is also mentioned in like Sons of Anarchy and stuff like that. So Walton Goggins, amazing. He's great in this. I mean, the way they end his character arc, amazing. Then you got Paula Garces as Tina Hanlon in the last couple of seasons. But yeah, ongoing storyline, but yet each episode, right, is not just like a serial, like a soap opera. They may have a mission that they have to complete in that episode, yet they're still advancing the arc. Very much like Babylon 5. You have a self-contained episode, that has a beginning, middle, and end, yet they're still advancing the character arcs. They're still advancing the overall plot arc. So, amazing show. It's The Shield. I'll look up where it is streaming, but if you can get it on DVD at a used place, you know, probably for $5 or $10 a pop per season, then do it, because it's worth having that media, that physical media. So The Shield from FX, that's my TV recommendation. And The Man with No Name series is my movie recommendation, the whole trilogy. Check it out. So with that being said, we are going to sign out and we will see you next week.